thank you very much for being with us today. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure, my name's Paul Bird. I've been working with Dairy NZ for a number of years now in various roles, ranging from being a consulting officer in the field through to a regional manager, and then now I'm a project manager in the development group.
And what is your function?
I'm currently the project manager for a project called Whole Farm Assessment, and that's a project around systemising the way that we assess a farm business.
Mm-hmm. So along the how did you come to the dairy industry? What were the milestones for you?
Well, I guess coming through university, coming off a small farm, became interested in agriculture obviously, and undertook an agricultural science degree, and then looked at various options and decided to move into the consulting officer role. That sort of suited the direction I wanted to head in, and had a great 4 years in the far north as a consulting officer.
Why is it important to look at a farm in a system approach?
Well, if you look at a farm business, there's so many different aspects to it in relation to people management, managing cows and feed, the environment, the finances of the farm. And if you try and pick out one component of that and make an assessment and recommendations, sometimes you can go down the wrong track. So it's very important to look at every part of the farm business, and that's the reality of how farmers, farming couples run their businesses. All of those aspects interact with each other, and you've really got to take account of all of them if you're trying to help farmers to achieve their goals.
So what's the innovation here in terms of looking at the farm? Is it in the technology, in the way that the technology helps you?
Well, I guess the innovation is trying to systemise the approach. You know, there's lots of tools out there that can look at different parts of the farm business. Really, whole farm assessment is trying to systemise an approach, a way of thinking. When you drive up a farmer's driveway, what's the process you go through, and what are the questions you ask, and how do you come to conclusions that are actually the core issues for that farmer or for that farming couple.
Can you give me a little quick rundown on what this systematization is?
Well, one of the things we do is we ask for the financial information from the farm, the farm accounts through Dairybase, and so we will do an assessment of that farm business before we've even gone to the farm, and that will give us some clues, but doesn't give us the whole picture. It'll give us some clues and help us with our questioning when we get to the farm. When we arrive on the farm, we spend pretty much all the time asking the farmer questions through a range of different topic areas, ranging from their values, their farming philosophies, their goals, where they want to be in the future. We visit the farm, we do a farm walk and have a look at their farm management, ask them again around their approach to how they manage the cows and the feeding and the grass. We look at the environment, the farm infrastructure, their staff management, how they manage recruitment and performance. And so that might be a 3-hour process, and then it involves then going away and then trying to distill that down and saying, well, what are the core issues that are coming out from the analysis that we've done. Right, one of the examples of a farming couple we visited, we did a whole farm assessment on this farm. When we first got to the farm, we asked them what the goals were, and they were very clear that they wanted to move into farm ownership. They were a 50-50 she milking couple, and they wanted to move into farm ownership within 4 or 5 years. As we worked through the questioning process, we realised they hadn't done any benchmarking of their farm business in relation to how efficient their she milking business was, and they didn't do budgeting or any sort of forecasting, but they did have this very clear vision of that they wanted to buy a farm. And so we using Dairybase, benchmarked their farm business. We identified that they actually weren't performing as well as what they had thought they were, and this was, even though a little bit of a shock to them, they were really pleased to know where they sat, and they also weren't doing any budgets or cash flow budgets. So these, by working through the benchmarking process, we identified a couple of key areas where they weren't performing. Around their pasture eaten per hectare was quite low compared to the district. So that was an area that they could work on around stocking rate and pasture management. And then some of their financial management, our recommendation was they needed to start budgeting and doing monthly cash flow monitoring to start to work towards their goal of farm ownership. Well, another example of a farming couple that we visited and completed a whole farm assessment was a Waikato farming family. The process that we worked through is we benchmarked the farm business using Dairybase before we visited the farm, and it showed that they had very high debt levels for their scale of operation, and so that was a little bit concerning when we did that initial benchmarking. When we got to the farm, we then did a farm walk around the farm, and part of the whole farm assessment is looking at the environmental aspects of the farm business. And there were some issues there that came up around fencing of waterways. That was an area of concern for the whole farm assessment group. And so when we came back to the farmers with our recommendations, one of the key ones was around getting somebody in, either a consulting officer or a dairy company representative, to undertake a farm enviro walk to pinpoint the key areas around this environmental area that they needed to take action. In relation to the financial area, again there wasn't a lot of financial monitoring or budgeting going on. Very high debt levels because they'd recently acquired blocks of land and runoffs up the road, and we felt their business was under a lot of pressure, and so we recommended that they needed to get some outside financial support on, just to really have a look at the sustainability of their business, at the current payout levels.
So it was a surprise in a way for the farmer, and perhaps a red light in time, or a way for them to change course?
Well, I think they'd acquired the blocks of land when the payout was going up and looked quite attractive, and now looks like we've had a little bit of a drop. They needed to firstly understand their current position, which they hadn't really looked at closely because things had been going so well over the last 3 or 4 years. And secondly, the viability of the farm didn't look great in the current structure at, let's say, a $5.50 payout, and maybe some decisions around some of those blocks of land needed to be made around selling. Now, we didn't make that decision for them, but the budget didn't look good given the current situation. There wasn't a lot of room to increase output of milk on the farm, and so it was really just really flagged as a key area that they needed to make some decisions on over the next year or so.